It happened in an instant. Some rubbing alcohol, a lighter, and absolute terror.
It was just extreme heat and flames, and it seemed like the whole house was on fire.
The house was not on fire, but Melvin McDaniel was. His arms, chest, and hands engulfed in flames. He battled to tear off his burning clothes.
I finally ripped them off, and I was standing in the kitchen naked. I could see my skin on parts of my shirt on the floor. I could see it smoldering.
See it and smell it. The putrid odor of burning human flesh.
The smell was awful.
And the aftermath was too. McDaniel spent more than a month in the hospital and suffered through 8 operations. He still carries around the scars, and it is a heavy burden. A daily reminder of the woman McDaniel says intentionally set him on fire, burning away his flesh, his ego, and his peace of mind. That woman was his girlfriend.
Was she trying to kill you?
I think so.
And if he's right, she would certainly not be the first. Each year in this country, 600 men are killed by their wives, girlfriends, or exes. You hear the statistics for female victims of domestic violence.
We know that every 15 seconds a woman is battered.
But how often is a man battered by a woman in the United States? Well, the number is the same, every 15 seconds. At least according to Richard Gellis. Gellis is considered one of the country's leading experts on domestic violence. He has made a career of talking to victims and perpetrators, and what he's discovered is that
the women are as likely to initiate the violence as the men.
And it might surprise you to know that Gellis says 1/4 of all domestic violence cases involve men who don't hit back. That's what the numbers say. In this room in Sacramento, California, you'll find the people who back them up.
Somebody was going to die in my house. I was ready to fight to the death over who didn't change the toilet paper roll.
These 3 women have all been locked up for violent behavior, usually against a husband or boyfriend. The women have also done time in an anger management class run by Claudia Diaz.
Do you think people would be surprised how many women come here?
Amazed. I think they would be surprised how many women engage in physical violence.
The Sacramento program is one of just a handful of anger management programs in the U.S. targeted toward women who abuse their male partners.
You think that can't nothing happen to you. I mean, you just can go through life and do it and hit and slap and punch.
And I thought it was really cool to be a tough guy.
Yeah, defend yourself.
So if there are men who are victims of domestic violence, it seems that there would be shelters to house those men. But we searched the whole country and found just one domestic violence shelter that accepts men. We found it here in the middle of the California desert. We can't show you the outside of the shelter because we want to protect the men, women, and children who stay here. We can show you the inside, places where those children can finally play without fear. Rick Stratton participates in the shelter's outreach program. His wife did time for 6 felonies, including stalking, abuse, and causing grave bodily harm. He says she broke his ribs, his jaw, and his confidence, and when doctors treated his injuries, he lied.
I'm getting 3 or 4 stitches in my jaw, and I'm telling them that I fell down and hit a TV.
Stratton says he knew a 180-pound tattooed guy would be laughed at if he asked for help.
There's 100,000 male victims in our society who, when they present themselves as victims, the best they can hope for is that they'll be taken seriously, but more often than not, they'll be laughed at or ridiculed. What do you mean? You let your wife hit you? Why would you let your wife hit you? Hit her back.
But Stratton swears he never did. He says he learned as a child over a game of Monopoly never to hit his sister, a lesson handed down by his father.
He told me one time, he said, you do that again and you'll pay for it. You don't hit girls.
A very different lesson from the one many little girls learned.
I was taught if any man ever says anything to me that's inappropriate, I get to slap him.
I can't think of anything bad enough.
And Hollywood teaches that lesson too.
The latitude that women get is more substantial. They have a greater free fire zone.
Some say even our nation's lawmakers have looked the other way. Back in 1994, Congress passed the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA. It's $1.6 billion tax dollars.
It's done a lot of very concrete things that will actually increase the physical safety of not just women, but all people who use those services.
People we talked with all agree that VAWA has done good things for women, but most say it has done little or nothing for men. One Justice Department official told us flat out, quote, "The program is designed to assist women." And take a look at this Justice Department document obtained by Fox 5. It acknowledges that for the purposes of VAWA, the department refers to, quote, "victims as women and perpetrators as men." Critics say that's un-American.
Clearly it's unconstitutional.
Congressman John Conyers sponsored the Violence Against Women Act.
I worry about constitutional issues, and this is not one of them.
National Organization for Women Executive Vice President Kim Gandy is one of VAWA's strongest advocates. She says the bill does not discriminate.
Most all of the provisions are quite gender neutral.
But if the language of the bill is gender neutral, why not make the name gender neutral?
What's in a name?
Maryland Congresswoman Connie Morella says that there is something in a name. She says the Violence Against Women Act is called that because more often than not, women are the victims of what used to be called a dirty little secret.
That secret really affected women far more than men. And women were contained within their little shell as a hostage.
She's right. Women are more likely to be victims. Morella admits they are perpetrators too. In fact, Richard Gellis says there are 2 million women in the U.S. who hit their male partners. Take out those who are emotionally provoked and those who hit in self-defense, and he says you're still left with 100,000 women who beat their male partners. Author Phil Cook says hardly anybody's talking about that.
There is, I believe, a deliberate effort to give out misinformation about domestic violence for political reasons.
Cook penned the only book ever written that focuses strictly on male victims of domestic violence. He's been speaking out, so has Barbara Ladine. Ladine works for a group called the Independent Women's Forum. She's a regular critic of some of VAWA's biggest supporters.
I think the average taxpayer would be appalled. Also because the average taxpayer has been beaten around the heads by the media and by the government to understand that this is a female problem done by males.
Lobbyists for men's organizations say the American taxpayer has bought into those negative stereotypes of men.
They stay after work, they have sex with their secretaries, they go to the bar with their buddies, they get drunk, they go out and have sex with the waitress, then they come home, beat the wives, and have sex with the children.
Back in the 1970s, as America fought a war in Vietnam, another battle, the one between couples, came into the spotlight here at home. Back then, people thought only men could be abusers. Claudia Diaz says that got women the help they needed.
And it was a great paradigm. It worked, it was effective, and it's not realistic.
Now, she and some others agree it's time for VAWA's supporters to make a change.
They like the spotlight to be on the women. The spotlight has been on the women for 20 years, and I have no problem with that in one sense because I want women to get help. But I think it's time to turn on the stage lights and see who else is on stage.
Researcher Richard Gellis says he's even had his life threatened by people who disagree with his conclusion that men are victims too.
How many death threats have you gotten?
10, 12.
Rick Stratton says that sort of active effort to hide information is dangerous.
I can't be an isolated incident. I can't be. And I know that there's something that's got to be done about it because the longer we stay quiet and we cover and we lie, the worse it's going to get. And we're going to be using body bags.
Counselors say not dealing with both sides of domestic violence means in the long run, kids suffer.
In the final analysis, it doesn't matter whether dad's hitting mom or mom's hitting dad, the children are watching and they're learning the wrong lesson.
The children learn to use violence in their homes, and they pick people who know that dance, and the violence just keeps going on and on and on.
On and on as children grow up and live in the shadow of their parents' mistakes.